something to say. Woo woo. Anna Nelson's in the house. You don't know Anna Nelson? Well, people around the world, you're going to want to know. Anna, she's coming in. She just waved to me. So that's exciting. So here's the good news. I waved and at Anna, let's say, I don't know. I thought, wait a minute. Did I double book myself? Don't you worry. It wasn't different. Anna. Don't we all do crazy things like that? Anna's coming here. Anna! How
Hello.
are you? You look awesome.
I'm all right. Oh, thank you.
You feel good?
Yes. Now, do I click share
Just
video?
leave it, Anna. They can see you now. We are all good. Everybody, this is
Okay.
Anna's first time going live on Instagram. Hey, Anna! All right.
Yay.
Before we get into how we met and all that fun stuff, let me tell them a little about you. Anna is a coach to early stage entrepreneurs. I think there's some of you out there who want to get focused and aligned in their businesses. She spent 18 years working in the financial, retail, and marketing industries, while at night she was wondering, what am I good at and why do I matter? After lots of experimenting, she realized she knew the answer all along. She loved helping individuals discover what it is they're good at and how their strengths change lives, and has since built her business around that. You know, Anna, I did not know a lot of that.
Well, I'm a mystery, Sandy. It's like meeting someone at the gym class and you only know them because of the type of workout that they do, but you don't know anything else about them.
That happens all the time. That's right. All right, Anna, let's get into it. Anna and I met doing, what would you call it, a mastermind group, a course for heroic public speaking people that formed a group afterwards to put together a TEDx.
Yeah, I don't know what you would call it, but it was an amazing group, and our last session was last week. So both Sandy and I are very sad that it's not.
Shout out to everybody
right
at HBS 17, 15, any other stragglers, and Raj for putting it together, right? Wasn't that awesome?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes,
so,
it was amazing.
Let's just get right into it, Anna. Before you came on, I asked some of my peeps out there, what do they want to ask Anna? And the biggest question they had, they said, this is not for me. It's for my kid, so let's just go with that.
Okay.
How do they give them, let me make sure I get this right. How do they give them direction on how to find their strengths, especially when they think they're going in looking in all the wrong places? That's hysterical. Like, you think that is your strength, but I'm your mother. I know what is your strength. This is a big one. Yeah, this is a big
really
one.
Funny. It is, and it's a good question. And one, I love that the parent wants to know, right? So that shows, so let's say it's a mom asking on behalf of her child. It's like, one, that child is really fortunate that that mom is that child's mom because she cares. And I think one of the biggest things is, like, you can't really pinpoint exactly like, oh, what it is that they're good at, because they're still kids and they're still developing and they haven't experienced too many things. But I think there's still many times a through line that happens. And like when I was a kid, I was always calling my friend Danielle at 9 a.m. on Saturday mornings to hang out, and she usually had homework to do, but I always, 9 a.m., I called her. Sunday, I mean, it was, I'm sure her parents rolled their eyes every time the phone rang right at the dot on Saturday. So they were like, oh, we know who this is. And Sundays, I made plans with other friends. Like, I was always very concerned about my friends. Like, who am I hanging out with? talking on the phone. So it's like, at first glance, it can be like, oh, okay, well, Anna just wants to hang out with her friends. But really, it was behavior that pointed more towards like I love friends, I love people, I love individuals, but it also was pointing to like I just love connecting with other people. And so it took me a long time before I realized that connecting with others is actually like a strength, and it can be utilized in different ways, and not just like, oh, hey, I'm hanging out with my friend Sandy on Saturday morning. So I would almost say which for me, like as someone who has a lot of business goals, I will use reaching out to others as my reward for doing hard things. And because I can use like, oh, I need to call Sandy and see how she's doing. That can be a way for me to procrastinate. So if I have to do something, I will be like, you can call Sandy after you do this thing. So I think for a parent, what are the noticing, like, what are the things that your child is gravitating towards, and maybe even providing opportunities that for your child to experience different things. And if they're like, oh my goodness, I really loved that art class, great, let's do more of that. And then like have that, like, what are they gravitating towards in art class? Is it painting, or is it graphic design? Is it like there's so many nuances. So basically paying attention and allowing, I think, a child to experience different things, because their behaviors are going to lead them to the thing that they're really interested in.
I like that. And this other person is saying to me, yeah, I can tell that mom, hopefully she's not like me. I knew, not then, but looking back, I was trying to push my kid in the direction I wanted them to go versus the direction they wanted to go. The good news is she ended up realizing it and backing off. But good for you, Mom, for admitting that, right? Yeah.
Exactly. My entire childhood was like, well, when you grow up, get to college, it was like a very formulaic way of living my life, and I'm not living my life at all in that particular way, which I've had to kind of wrestle with. And then it's taken me a while to be like, yeah, no, that was the life that maybe other people had designed for me, or other metrics that people thought mattered, like grades at school. I got all the letter grades, but no one ever gave me straight A's for making friends in school. And so it took me a long time to figure that out, that just because I wasn't good at math didn't mean that I wasn't good at something.
You know, I really hope the school system is getting better at that, because I think about that all the time. I always, as you can imagine, Anna, would get in trouble for maybe talking a little too much, or maybe wanting to be the class clown, because I truly love entertaining people, but I wasn't getting A's for that. I was getting in trouble for that.
Yes. And that's where it's like, it was clear, like whatever you were doing as a child, like that's what you're doing now, but doing it in a much better, more mature way than you were doing as a kid. And now you have designed a business around that, and you help people with your particular strength set, which is amazing, because both you and I are changing people's lives, but we're doing it different. But it takes a while for us to figure out how we're doing that when we're not given that feedback to help us figure that out when we're little.
And by the way, and I do see it changing slightly, but it's still like my son, who flips numbers and he has a really tough time with math. He says, Mom, I know logically you say it doesn't matter, and I have all these other areas that I'm good at, because I was talking to him about what you said, which we'll get into the friction. And he goes, but it's really hard for me to imagine that emotionally when they keep pounding me to spend more time to be better at math.
Which I can totally understand, because grades do matter. Like if you want to get into a really good college, like you don't want to have a D on your report card for geometry, right? But I think if you know you have, like, if I I have a stepdaughter and she's in ninth grade. I'm like, okay, if I had a child, I think for me, it's like, how do we help your son then recognize and
Yes.
own, like, he really loves art. He's not going to
No.
be a mathematician, but he does need to at least get certain grades so that maybe he wants to go to a prestigious art university. What grades does he need to get in? But he can own that this isn't going to be an easy subject for him. But in order to get those grades to get ultimately where he wants, does he need a tutor? Does it really matter if like, maybe there's a bare minimum? Maybe it's okay for him to get a C.
That's a good, good point.
And own it and be like, yeah, no, I'm not going to be a mathematician. I got C's and I'm good. That's a passing grade. Great.
I love that. Parents, listen to that. Think about what the end goal is for your kid, and does it really matter that they get that A to get where they want to go? And it may not. Love it, Anna. It sounds so simple, but we need to apply it. All right. Before I forget, I love your statement to the world. I said, what do you want to say? And you said, you matter even when it feels like you don't. And that's huge. And I got a lot of questions about that. People, which you understand, we hear that all the time. Yeah, you matter, you matter, you matter, you're worthy. But what are some simple things they want to know? I'm condensing a lot of the questions that they can do when they don't feel like that, to remind themselves. Because no matter what, there's some days I like this. I just can't get out of my own way, tell Anna.
Yes. Well, I literally had a conversation with a friend yesterday on my way to my parents' house where I am right now about like, it's really hard to like my life doesn't look at all like the way that I thought that it would. And so I think it's easy to put our worth tied up into that. And so I think one way I get out of it is offloading those feelings to another friend who can actually just be like, yeah, that is really hard, blah, blah, blah. But then I also know, okay, I do matter. That's why I'm going up to my parents, because my brother's moving out of the country this weekend. So I'm here to help out and hang out with my little nieces and nephews. And I think also understanding like, what are the strengths that I have, and how do those strengths like change someone's life, even if it on one level it's just like one-on-one in a one-on-one conversation. I had a coaching call with someone from Istanbul this morning, and that conversation changed his life. Like the series of conversations that we have had over the last month or so, like he said, thank you so much for helping me to think about this. And so like, if I'm feeling down, I can know like, you know what, maybe I'm feeling down because I'm not connecting one-on-one with someone, which is my strength. So if I need to have a pep talk, then go out and talk to someone. And I think kind of like your son, where he's like, they're really making me feel like I need to get good grades in math. I think that's where it's like recognizing that isn't your skill set. Yeah. Like, don't worry about it. And so don't have your worth tied up in something that you're just not that good at. And ultimately, all of us have life. Like, we're humans and we have life inside of us. And so we do matter because life matters and we matter. And I had a friend give an analogy of like when you have a little baby, that little baby is like pooping and sleeping and eating and being really messy, and everyone like oohs and ahs over that baby, and the baby's done nothing to deserve any of that attention, right? And so how can we put ourselves in more situations where I think sometimes it's like taking agency for being like, okay, this is how I'm feeling. Is it true? How can I know it's not true? What am I good at? What do I want to do? I don't know. There's a lot there that I just said.
So I have to tell you a little secret. The first time we met and you were talking about your TEDx, you mentioned the word agency. Actually, agency was what I was saying. I had no idea what you were talking about, so I looked up Google. What does agency mean? I was like, what does that mean in proportion? Is this like a buzzword? Oh, no.
buzzword.
It's okay. I was vulnerable. And my husband is cracking up like, oh my God, you're too much. Okay, so let's get into it then. You talked about that you love early stage entrepreneurs and that you really help them focus and get aligned in their specific business. And I'm sure it's all over the place, but this young lady wants to know, do you have set courses? Is it something that you sign up for just as you go and everybody's different, but what's the plan? They want to know, Anna.
So this is an interesting timing of this particular show because I have learned a lot about myself over the last few years. And as I've been growing and developing my business, really figuring out, like, does this work for me or does this work for me? And giving myself permission to change things up and not have them be perfect. So I'm going to be working on a workshop where it will be like done at the end of April. So working on a workshop so then people can kind of take that and be like, okay, learning a little bit more about themselves and getting more self-aware. So it kind of starts with like, what are your end goals? And sometimes people have goals and they're like, I don't know how to reach these. Or like a business owner, if someone's like, I want to quit corporate and I want to have my own business, work for myself and have my own flexibility. Okay. What does that look like? Do you know what you're good at? So basically, when I say I help early stage entrepreneurs focus and get aligned, it's like helping them see this is what you're really good at. So focus here. And now how are we going to get everything else in alignment with all of the tasks that come along with running a business, that many of which are not fun, but you can offload those to someone else who loves doing it. So the first thing is kind of, I think, taking agency of like, what are your goals? What are your hopes and dreams? And then becoming more self-aware about yourself to see like, how can I make that happen? Or what am I, if you're going to go into business, what are you good at? What sets you apart from someone else? Because you and I are both coaches, but we're very different. And that's okay. We just have to understand how we're different. So then I don't feel bad if I, let's say, have a podcast and you don't. And you don't have to feel bad if you don't have a podcast, because we're making business decisions based on what it is.
It's important.
Good at.
You can get lost in that, and especially with social media. You see, oh my God, this person is doing this, this person is doing this. I had a guest on last week, Anna, that she gets up at 3:30 in the morning. And so many people are going, oh my God, I'm not going to make it, because I'm like, hold on there, horsey. You know, that works for Erica, and she is magnificent of it. But it doesn't mean you're not going to be successful because you're not getting up at 3:30 in the morning.
Yeah, exactly. And from what she shared, I mean, I have never met her, but from what she shared, it sounds like she has a lot going on. And so those few hours are kind of what she's taking to set herself up for success. And she even said, it's like, my schedule doesn't work for others, so create your own schedule. And I think there are so many like cookie cutter things out there that people are like, just follow this plan, go to school, go to college, do all these things. It's very prescriptive, and we forget that we have agency to recognize what is it that I want, what am I good at, and how can I own that, and then build a life around that, versus the other way around where it's like, I'll do this, I'll do this, I'll do this, and you've never even thought about if you wanted to do that in the first place.
And I do want to talk about your TEDx, because there was a lot of, it's going to be amazing. And she also is a keynote speaker already. But I do want to bring up, put yourself in the right situation to highlight your strengths, whether, I don't care what the word is, friction, chaos, you name it. But it did resonate with me and my son. So here's the deal. Anna was talking about, in the right environment, you can flourish, basically. You can flourish. But in the wrong environment, you may think, what the heck, and really feel like you have no strengths and not have the ability to shine. And in that environment, whether it's school or work or home, there's a lot of friction, or it makes you feel uncomfortable, or you're just not right for it and your strengths can't shine through. Well, I brought that up to my son, and he was like, Mom, oh my God, it shed so much light for him, because at the school he was at, with 2,500 kids, it was too overwhelming, and he was having major social anxiety. Put him in a smaller school, and instantly, in a week, and that's after struggling for 2 years to think, I can make it work, I can make it work, I can make it work. I'm a smart kid, I'll get along. I wish, we can't go back, we put him in sooner. And it was like, boom, he started flourishing. So I want you to talk a little bit about that, because I think it's so important to recognize, whether it's school, your professional life, or home, you could be in a situation that you cannot flourish in. Whatever you want to call the word, Anne.
Yeah, and that it's tricky because, one, when things start going wrong, it's like giving yourself, like, recognizing, okay, what really is going on, and it's like twofold, because there are some situations that you can't get out of. So some of it is learning to be a better person who's loving, and that's very difficult. I'm not always the world's greatest at that, but like ultimately, like, okay, I'm in a situation I don't like, but it is still my prerogative to care for these individuals and be loving and nice and kind, even if this isn't the right situation for me, because at the end of the day, we're all humans, right? But if it's like a job, let's say, and there are certain parts of your job that you love and then certain parts that you hate, kind of recognizing, like, all right, well, maybe I can find a job that has more things that I love doing, or maybe this isn't the right company for me because the values aren't right, or maybe you prefer working for a smaller boutique type company versus a large company. So it's really paying attention to what are the things that you like doing, and then making that shift. So I've worked 18 years in corporate, and I have always wanted to have my own business and be free, but it took me a long time to realize I could have my own business actually talking to people. So I'm a certified coach now, so that's what I do. And how do I like helping people? I had to really figure that out. How do I want to grow my business? Is it by being on social media, or is it by referrals? So like, some of it, again, is paying attention to what you enjoy doing and what you love doing, and then designing everything around that and getting yourself out of the circumstances that aren't working for you and being okay with that. So like your son with the school, going to a smaller school, great. Now he knows, now he's flourishing. And so he didn't need to be forced, like, you must know all 2,500 students at the school and you will like it. Like, no, if that was the only school left in the world, then it would be about how can you make the most of the situation that isn't working well. And some of our life lessons are, how can you make the most of a life situation that you're in that isn't working for you, but you're transitioning out of it into something new, and growth takes time.
Yeah. Is there ever a time recently that you felt you were in a situation where you felt friction and your strengths were coming through? Maybe you could tell us a little story or something that has happened to you specifically.
I would say I got married 2.5 years ago, met and married my husband during COVID. And I think yes. And I would say we've learned that we're very different from each other, which I feel like a lot of couples realize that after they get married. And just kind of recognizing there are things in my situation that they're not bad, but they're not conducive to how I lived in Boston for 10 years, and I love that city. I love that you get to walk around it. I could walk into any store or any coffee shop and I knew their names. I knew the people who worked there. I knew their names, and some of them became friends, so then we would hang out. I had this whole like ecosystem of people I connected with. And now I live in a very, very small town where you don't really walk around, and if you do, it's on a very simple path past like housing developments where it used to be a cornfield, and it's been really, really challenging for me. So I've had to learn, if I know I need to see people, if I know I need variety, how can I build that into my life? Because my system currently, as it is not set up for that. So I don't know if that So I have to learn to still be loving to the people around me, my husband, and be okay living in this house. But then if I know traveling makes up for not being able to walk out of my house into a big city, then maybe I need to travel more. So it's kind of like padding a situation, so to speak, with things that I enjoy doing if I can't actually change the circumstance.
That's great, because I think for a lot of people, that's what I'm hearing is it's all well and good that your son could switch schools, but some of them it's not that easy because of where they live. The kid can't switch school, or they're in a situation where they can't switch jobs right now. And I love the way that you said, I recognize this is how I thrive. And where I'm living right now doesn't set me up for that. So what can I do? You know? And I would be the same way, Anna. I need people. And even during COVID, I remember my son going, him and my husband are introverts. I'm an extreme extrovert. And he's like, Mom, I lived my whole life training for this. We're worried about you, you know? So what I would do is go out on my bike, even in the cold, and just wave to people from a distance and talk to people and do anything I could besides virtual, because I needed for me to see humans. And then when allowed, I would go to like the Wawa, Whole Foods, anything I could. And believe it or not, those small little interactions, they worked for me.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And you were using your agency to add that to your life, even though, I mean, COVID was like a next level experience, right? But you still did something about, you recognized what your need was, and you went.
Yeah, and the good thing that came out for me, Anna, is that even now things are opened up, most of my work, not all of it now, is virtual. But I realize that I am someone that needs to meet people in person. So I need to set up, for me, I like setting up workshops that are in person, teaching things that are in person, coffee things that are in person, and X times a week, that it's not just good enough for me to just do virtual. And that's what came out of that, because I would have known it. I would have thought something was wrong. And then I'm like, wait a minute, this is what it is. I mean, this is human contact, but it's not the same thing as being in person.
Yes, but even for you to recognize that is really important. So like you said, you're not just letting it slide like, oh, it'll be virtual, it'll be fine. But now you know, like, that's so important, because just the way that you are as a performer and as a speaker, you get a lot more feedback in person. So then you can be like even more on top of your game and make a huger impact, a more huge impact, whatever the proper sentence is, because you are in person. And so owning it and then making that happen.
Yeah. By the way, people, you can reach out to Anna separately. I can't get to all these questions, but tell us, they want to know what's your keynote about.
My keynote. I'm still working on my keynote. I got excited about my TEDx, so I have been focusing on that. But my keynote, I think ultimately I want it to be where I can help people start to think for themselves, like how ultimately I want people to know that they matter. And I think that's why I love helping people individually recognize, like, okay, Sandy, you have a goal, you have a dream of having your own business. Okay, let's talk about why that matters and how you will matter in your own business and how you make an impact. So I think I want my keynote to be more high level of helping people understand, like, you matter. And maybe you've had so many circumstances where you haven't been told that you matter, but now you get to start thinking about that for yourself and owning it and believing it and recognizing the ways in which you do have a difference in people's lives, make a difference in people's lives, even though maybe those who are close to you have not ever acknowledged that or noticed it or seen it as something positive. So now what can you do for that? So something along the lines of you matter.
Oh, I like it. And is your TEDx going to be on the same subject matter?
Yeah, right now it'll be more like, how do you recognize friction in your circumstances as friction, and not that it has anything to say about you as a person. So if you're in a job that you hate, it isn't that you're a horrible employee. You're just in a job that really isn't set up for your particular strength set. Yeah. So now how can you get out of that?
Both amazing topics, Anna. All right. Listen, I got something to say, people. If you didn't get to see the show from the beginning, don't you worry. When Anna and I are done, I'm going to record it. And then I'm going to put it on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn, plus my website, plus Anna will be able to share it anywhere she'd like. We both would appreciate you sharing, liking it, and rating it. It means the world to us. But before we go, Anna, how can they find you? How can they reach you if they want to work with you and coach with you?
Sure. So my website is AnnaYNelson.com, A-N-N-A, the letter Y, Nelson, N-E-L-S-O-N.com. And you can go to the contact page and just fill out a little message thing and reach me there. Or you can DM me here on Instagram at AnnaYNelson. I'm on LinkedIn at AnnaYNelson, and I'm on Facebook at AnnaYNelson. But I prefer like LinkedIn or reaching out via form. Like, I love one-on-one. So if we get an opportunity, if you email me, I'll email you right back. And maybe we can set up a Zoom call and talk about different ways that we can work together.
Anna, thank you so much for being on. I'm glad it worked out. This has been awesome. I won't miss you quite so much since I got to see you today, but I still miss you on Monday.
I know. Well, likewise, and thank you so much for having me on the show. I think you're an amazing individual, and what you have to offer the world truly does matter, and I just love that the way that we show up in our different areas of expertise makes a difference in people's lives.
All right, I got something to say, people. You know what I'm going to say. Until next time, toodles. Bye, Anna.